Alex, how long have you been creating content as a founder on LinkedIn?
It's got to be 7.5 years,
Seven and a
at
half
least.
years.
Yeah.
And when you started, was it for your business or was it for something else? Could you give us a bit of context?
It was for a different business. So when I left my last job as a head of sales, the thing that got me started on creating content was my boss, who was the VP of sales at the time, said something. And he said, they're talking about what you did with turning around the sales team in some of the boardrooms around Portland. Wow, I might like know some things that people might want to hear. And it got me thinking, like, I need to test this out. I need to figure out, like, is that true? So I thought I would just post on LinkedIn about what I learned. And then if it resonated with people, I would assume that I did know what I was talking about. That'd be some sort of like external validation of my ideas. So I was posting about just stuff I'd learned in my last job. That turned into my consultancy, which became my agency, and
Mm.
then gave me the platform to launch my current SaaS company. So yeah, it was about kind of similar to this business, but it's morphed so many times that it was like, the content was about sales and outbound back then, and now it's
And
way different. But yeah,
and you started with Aware about 4, 5 years ago, is that correct?
yes, V1 of Aware was almost 5 years ago, and we
Okay.
spent 2 and change years building a product that would ultimately fail. And
Okay.
so we had to burn it to the ground after about, I think it was 2000 of MRR. We burned it down. We built something totally different. And
Okay.
that is, let's see, February 2023. So coming up on 2 years of like the real Aware is
The
more
the
new.
pivot, right?
The pivot, exactly. Yeah.
Love that. And when you started creating content, was it initially for Aware as well? Because I read a really interesting post that you did, and it said it was about your LinkedIn organic content or your presence as a founder in general. 2,300 people started free trials of your SaaS this year,
This
whereas
year, yeah.
1,000 people became customers,
Mm-hmm.
minus the churn, you could say.
Yep.
54,000 of gross SaaS MRR sales, again, minus the churn.
Yeah.
And zero capital raised basically, and you guys are bootstrapped. So just how big of an impact is that? And would you have achieved something like that if it wasn't for your founder brand?
No way. No way. I mean, uh, I do talk sometimes about SEO, right? Because
Uh-huh.
the agency that I built and then exited recently is an SEO
Uh-huh.
agency. So I know what I'm doing there. I know what I'm doing with outbound, but it wouldn't be nearly where it is today without this. I mean, my founder brand is so there's a couple different aspects. There's the
Yeah.
primary, like people look at my posts, they buy our stuff. That's easy, right? That's what people think of. But then there's my founder brand opens doors that other people can't open. So productive influencer partnerships with people that then can
Mm.
sell Aware to their audience. Those doors wouldn't have been opened if I wasn't building my own founder brand. Um, so that's the secondary revenue. And then there's the people who refer us business and tell their friends about us, but they only do that because we're top of mind with them. And we're top of mind with them because of the founder brand, right? So, I mean, if you think about the ad spend I would have needed to put in to equate
Mm.
what this is like, I don't even know if you could put a number on it because people trust ads less than they trust founder brand.
Mm.
So I don't even know if you can really say, well, this is my CPM, but I mean, I unequivocally would not be here without it. So it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Two things. First, you actually answered one of my favorite questions that I ask founders. If you were to generate the same awareness that you're doing through organic content, how much would you spend in paid ads? You already answered that.
I don't know.
And yeah, it is crazy. I asked Justin Rowe the same thing, and he said that he would have to spend, I think, 25 to 30,000 per month to generate the same level of awareness he's doing through his organic content. He
That sounds about
does
right.
use, yeah, he does use paid ads and everything, but if he were to do that as well, that is crazy. The second thing that you mentioned that I really want to dive into is, which is interesting. You said that you're doing outbound as well, I suppose, right? You just mentioned it, but the effect wouldn't be near as it was if it weren't for your founder brand. How big of a difference has that made? Do you think it would be a significant difference if it was just outbound and no founder brand influence?
Well, the type of outbound I do now is very low volume.
Hmm.
So it's different, right? Like you have a lot of people with no brand. Well, let's talk about founder brand, right? What is a brand? Is it the logo, the banner, the color scheme, the fact that in your YouTube thumbnails you're doing this, right? Or some ridiculous face,
Yeah.
or is it what people know you as? And so I think because I have been creating content on LinkedIn and doing this for almost 8 years now, um, a lot of people know me to be consistent and helpful, and they're like, "Yeah, that guy's been out here for pushing 8 years doing this thing. Like, I appreciate it, you know." And so
Yeah.
when I get in touch with people, there's it's weird to say. Like, I don't say this in a self-serving kind of way, but like, there's a strong chance they'll have heard of me and at least know something about me before I reach out. Um,
Yeah.
it's rare that in this ecosystem you'll find somebody who hasn't heard of me. Just like I'm not saying that to be like kind of like an ass or arrogant, but like just by the numbers, like total number of impressions, members reached on LinkedIn. In B2B, you're gonna have heard of the stuff I do. Just been doing it for so long, right? Like
Yeah.
Morgan Ingram, everyone freaking knows Morgan Ingram. He's been posting content, has been out there for a long
I've booked
time.
him
Like
as well. Yeah. I've booked him as well for the episode.
there you
See?
go. That's what I mean, right? Like
Yeah.
Christine Rogers, Amy Voles, like you've heard of these people, like in B2B at least, and in different niche, it's different people, but so yeah, that's the type of outbound I do is like more low volume. I don't automate it. It's funny, I do get people who, when I reach out to them for when they start a free trial, I'll say like, hey, Khalib, welcome to Aware. It's great to have you in the
Yeah.
product. And they'll say, oh, nice automation. I'll be like, nope, wasn't automated. I'm still here. What's up? And sometimes I'll just send a
Love
voice
that.
note to confirm, like, nope, I'm right here.
That is me.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Love that.
it's fun.
Yeah, and when it comes to creating content, you've had to pivot because of your previous business, right? Or even
Yeah.
your exit, let's say. How did you create this positioning in the market where you wanted people to know you as the founder of Aware, as the SaaS founder? How long did it take you to figure your positioning out in the market?
So I've rebranded multiple times. And for
Mm,
anyone who's thinking like, oh, AQ, it's weird if I talk about something different. Like, and I was talking with Morgan Ingram about this. You should ask him about this on your show.
okay.
He was like, I've been talking about sales now for so long. Now I want to talk about influencer marketing. I'm nervous about that. And I was like, bro, don't be. Just do it. Like
Mm,
people will follow your lead. So I started talking about sales leadership and sales development. And then I started talking about content marketing. And then I started talking about LinkedIn and outbound. And then I started talking much more about SEO. And then gradually over the course of about a year and a half, I was the SEO guy.
mm,
I never went out and said, change brand here, flip the switch. Like I just
yeah.
did it enough that people were like, oh, that's what he is now. I kept talking about LinkedIn too. And then over the course of 2024, I've really leaned into talking about LinkedIn ops content on LinkedIn and kind of creator life because of sort of the transition toward more effort going into Aware while
Yeah.
the Revenue Zen team kind of really runs with what they're doing. I mean, Revenue Zen is now owned by a public company that has lots of agencies. So like they have lots of stuff going on. So they're less dependent on me to do this.
Mm,
So it hasn't been like a sharp about face from like, I've been talking about supply chain for 7 years. And then I started talking about, human design like this. It wasn't that like sharp thing. It's just been over the course of these years, talking about all the things that I do, that I see. It's all oriented around organic growth. So it's no surprise, right, that I would now talk about things that relate back to SaaS and just
yeah.
start talking a bit more about, features and stuff too.
Yeah.
But it's been in line, right? It's not like there's no
It's not
binary, like,
random.
all of a sudden, boop, some random thing, as you said.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. And ever since we've been connected, it's been a couple of months. Your style of creating content is more like documenting your journey as opposed to following a very strict guideline, right? Because I see your
Yeah.
posts, I read them, and I'm like, it feels like I'm reading something that has just happened and Alex has just talked about it. So what is your approach? Is it still that documenting your journey approach, or do you still have a few content pillars that you try to follow in your content?
Good question. I'm so glad it feels that way because I wrote that post last night at 6 p.m.
It
So
shows,
it
yeah.
is very fresh, right?
Yeah.
Some of my content is just, it's call it evergreen. It's scheduled in advance. I currently have content scheduled out through the middle of January unaware.
Mm.
So like my queue is full. I do have some spaces in there to let me have some time to just talk about what I
Yeah.
want. For example, I need to do a post because one of my great agency partners sent me this. So
Oh,
I'm
what is that?
soon going to do a post. I'll show you because it's a
Yeah.
video podcast. So Sahil sent me this. It's a beautiful kitchen knife, and
Oh
oops,
wow.
where's the camera?
It's right here.
With
Yeah.
his logo on it, or this the
Okay, I
company
can
name.
see a bit of yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, maybe too focused out, but like
Oh,
that's a
now I can see
spiralizer
it.
right there. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and this
yeah.
beautiful
I can see
box,
it
and
now.
I'm just like, dude, I need some time to like put something that's just more evergreen, something that's
Yeah.
just like, I'm gonna take a repost and move it out and post about this beautiful freaking knife that I just got because Sahil's amazing. So I leave myself the space.
Yeah.
Um, but I think there's two extremes. One, you go full Justin Welsh, you do your content matrix, you have content scheduled out that's just formulaic, copywritten. It's like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
tight, and it's like it's perfect. It's like a limestone sculpture, and you just have only that, and that's too
Looks
perfect. It's too
almost
rigid.
too good. Yeah, it looks almost too good.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's not real, right? And then the opposite
Yeah.
is like, I only want to do the real. And I'm always going to write every day. I'm going to get up at 5 a.m., do my ice plunge, and then I'm going to write every day on LinkedIn. Like that gets exhausting. So
Yeah.
I would say, I mean, for me, what I do is I schedule out a bunch, like 3 or 4 posts a week. I give myself some space. Usually Friday is like personal post time. I just like kind of reflect. And then if I just am feeling heady up here and want to get my thoughts unrolled onto a post on paper, take the time to do that. And I just move whatever I scheduled I had out. It's really easy to do in Aware, so I just push it out and kind of done.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a mix. It's got to be a mix, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I think from what I'm getting is two things. Number one, the way you create content is, yes, document your journey, but at the same time have something that follows a bit of structure so that you don't really spiral around. Number one. Number two, and what I've noticed personally as well on LinkedIn, if you look at content from 2 to 3 years ago or even last year, templated content was everywhere. You knew it was a template. Everybody was following that Justin Welsh
Yeah,
operating system, right? Write this hook,
right.
keep it short, listicles. And now when I read at it, when I read something like that, I almost throw up a little because it's just so much out there. Now I prefer creators who are not afraid of maximizing their 3,000 character limit on LinkedIn,
Yeah,
because then I know that it's raw. Somebody has recently written it, something like your content, Alex, and I know it's fresh, right? Instead of something that is a perfect hook and perfect body of the post. So
yeah.
that's interesting. So I guess the question here is, Alex, if there's a founder who's listening to this or watching this and they want to create content on LinkedIn as a founder, build their brand, what would your advice be? Document your journey in the beginning, have a bit of structure. What would you say?
In the beginning, it's going to be pretty much all documenting journey. And
Okay.
it's usually not till later that you know a bit about what resonates. And then you can finally
Mm.
like start to figure out like if you have a pillar, what that might be. So if you look at like somebody who's doing a really good job of this, who I just invested in his company recently, is Kellen Casepier. He doesn't have any.
I've booked him as well. Yeah.
All the people I bring out, you book.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm an investor in the Deal Lab, and obviously I look at his content. We talk about how to do that, but like he doesn't have any like hooks. He just sort of he's so smart. And Kellen just like when you talk to Kellen, he just crackles with energy and like his
Mm.
brain is just like it's a roaring fire. And you can tell that when in his post, you just kind of see that he's just like
It's
his
very
mind is
raw.
working so quickly. Yeah, it's like that
Yeah.
he has to get down, you know? And I think it really appeals to people because it's so unconsidered. Um, and I think there's space later, maybe like after 6 months to a year, to look back at your content of all this unconsidered stuff you put out and see what people DM'd you about, what people really commented on, what people really liked, what seemed like was, a pillar that really ties to your solution. Like, okay, great. Maybe now you go through and you pretty it up, you polish, you sculpt, right?
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I would say don't sculpt, right? Like, and when I was ghostwriting as an agency, I'm also an investor in 2 different
Mhm.
ghostwriting agencies. So I'm seeing how this is done now. I really like it when their clients let them post things that is unsculpted at first, because that works really well before getting to the like Justin Walsh did such a good job of, post exactly like this. And also, by the
Yeah.
way, engage with my posts every day. And like, just, it was brilliant. It was
Yeah.
brilliant how he did it. And like, some things you just can't do a second time, right? So like Justin
Yeah.
Walsh did it, great tactic, but that was good for him, not necessarily good for you. So like, if you're looking at that, be like, look at his advice and say, I'm amazed that he did it so well. How can I do something different and interesting of my own?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say less considered at first, then take 2 to 4 quarters, reflect.
Love that. This ties nicely into what I was going to ask you next. Now, whenever I work with founders, I help them build founder brands on LinkedIn. They have a couple of questions on sales or discovery calls, right? They say, well, I did try creating content. I created for like 2 or 3 months, but I felt like my content was too random. And then I felt burnout. And then I realized that maybe the platform isn't for me. It's not working out. And then I stopped creating content. So that is a major pain point, right? Have you ever experienced something like that? Or what would you say helps in overcoming something like that? Maybe a bit of strategy, maybe something behind the scenes. What is it?
I was lucky enough to have some deal flow come through in the early months of my LinkedIn journey.
Okay.
So it was always inescapably clear that this works.
Yeah.
And I knew it wasn't luck, because I mean, I put this in. I made a course a couple of years ago, and I put this in the course, and I was just like, okay, here's the email, and my it was Revenue Zen's 3rd or 4th client, Ramesh, wrote an email. He said, "Hey Alex, I saw your post in my newsfeed on LinkedIn. We're growing our sales team, and I'd like to chat
Oh,
anytime
wow.
next week." And then that was a multi 6-figure deal for us. So like month, 2.5 of LinkedIn that came through. For somebody who hasn't had that, I can see how it
Hmm.
would be more like, how's this going to work, right? Is it going to work? And I think the fear is justified, because if you approach it with no strategy and you're not a good writer, which honestly some people just aren't good writers yet. Maybe they need practice, maybe they need help, but just it's possible to do LinkedIn and have it not work. It's very possible. Even more, it's probable, because most people do LinkedIn and it doesn't really produce the kind of results that you and I have seen.
Yeah.
Um, so I think people are just worried, like, what if I spin my wheels and I become like that? Um, Maybe they're lucky enough to get it right the first time and they have a good instinct. Maybe they're not. So what I say is, it's guaranteed to work if you do it in this way.
Mm.
And it just, whether it's a ghostwriter or a consultant, a mentor, taking somebody's course to heart and really making it your own, like, you need to have a strategy. If you're not consistent, it's going to fail. And you need to look for early signs of success. So your engagement going, from 5 per post on average to 12 in a
Mm.
month is still, it's not that much, but
Progress.
it's progress, right?
Yeah.
People who you get on calls with saying, I saw your post recently. Progress. All these little
Yeah.
things of progress. And then it's just, if you get it, 10% better every week, then you're stacking all that progress on top of each other. The most common mistake, I think, is just not selling. People don't
Mm.
actually sell what they do in the post ever. And some people only sell what they do, and that just, you never see those posts because they don't go anywhere. But
Yeah.
if you're somebody who like only does thought leadership, and you never actually just say, here's my offering, here's what it is, here are the features, book a call below. Like,
Yeah.
you're, you're if you never sell, you'll never sell, right? It's just, you got to
Exactly.
sell. And I was talking to someone recently. Oh no, I was talking to my wife about this. She was like, well, I tried selling a while back, and it didn't really work out. And I said, oh, well, I never saw a sales post. What'd you do? And she said, well, I put it a little CTA below the post twice. Okay, that's not the same thing as a sales post. Like, once in a while, you
Yeah.
should just, like, the whole thing should be, here's what I have. But if you haven't done that, you should do. Everyone should post their founder journey, their story. Everyone should do one sales post, and then tell me if it's working or not.
Love that.
Because if you have a good background, if you have people in your network you've worked with that are credible, if you are credible, and you write a good sales post that somebody who's a good
Yeah.
writer has helped you with or something, and nobody reaches out, like something is wrong. Yeah, maybe take a step back, but like I've almost never seen that not have some sort of traction.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just can't join the masses for whom it's ineffective. But that's the purpose of good ghostwriters, good consultants, and mentors. Like they can help you crack the nut on that.
Yeah. And speaking of selling and creating content and not losing hope or looking for signals, I did a post about this some while ago, and I think you engaged with it as well. The post was about how there are lurkers on LinkedIn, right?
Mhm.
You create content, nobody really engages with you publicly. You can't really get a signal. But after a couple of months, somebody reaches out and they're like, hey, we've been consuming your content for a few months. We weren't ready to talk back then, but now we want to have a conversation, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
even if you don't see a direct signal in terms of a comment or a reshare or a like, it still does not mean that nobody relevant is watching your content or reading it, right?
yeah. I mean, if I think this is big for people who either have not worked in or sold to corporations.
Mm.
For those, I don't know, have you worked in like a 1,000+ person company before?
No, I've only worked in 3 startups so far.
Okay. Um, it's a pretty, it hits you in the face the moment you either sell to or work in one of these kinds of companies. Um, those people don't post on LinkedIn. They barely post internally. The politics there is so thick
Mm-hmm.
that you wouldn't just broadcast your intentions by commenting on a LinkedIn post. I mean, that would be like, it's like an unspoken rule of like, we don't do that, you know? Um,
Yeah.
but they look, and then they come privately through the DMs. Um, a large fintech company, like a household name brand that I signed an NDA with, but hired me to do a LinkedIn training a few months ago. Um, Never engaged with my content, not once. Never showed up my radar, not at all. I get an email one day from the director of content marketing. Hey, we need a speaker at our SKO. It's going to be September 18th. Um, you know, we have budget. Can we talk? And then, yeah, she would not have engaged with the post. No way. Like,
Yeah.
but she was there
But you
looking.
knew that but you knew that she was consuming your content beforehand.
I didn't.
Did
No,
you?
I asked after
And then they
when I
mentioned
was on
that, oh,
site.
we've been
When I
nice.
got on site, yeah,
Yeah.
I asked how how she found us. But you often won't be able to know until they reach out. And so like
Yeah.
it's like you were saying, um, if you're getting the right impressions, if you look at even the like who has viewed this post from which companies, like sometimes you'll see, you know, 10 people at Salesforce viewed my post. Like, okay, like if you're trying to prospect Salesforce, like maybe 9 of those are sales reps, but like maybe one of them is a director of delivery or someone you're trying to work with. I mean, so sometimes I think it that doesn't dawn on people, like the fact that
Mm.
corporate directors do not, they scroll LinkedIn, but they don't put anything out there. They don't
Publicly
like, they don't
engage.
comment. Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't want to do that. They don't publicly engage, and then when they're ready, they take the shot. They reach out. That's how it works. And then two, just the law of large numbers. So if you think, oh man, like I only got 500 impressions on this post, like, dude, 500 people saw
That's
your
a large
post. Think
number.
about it.
Yeah.
500, even if you just like 500 people walked by you giving a speech, that's something, like
Yeah.
it's like, oh, my reach is down. I used to get 10,000 per post. I get five. Dude, 5,000 people. You can't make millions of dollars with 5,000 people watching every post. Like something's got to give, right? That's kind of how I view it. Is you know, you do not have to put up J. Alex numbers to sell a lot, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the secret of this. There's so many like people who sell to corporates who have 200, 500K average deal sizes. They get 10 likes per post, and that is plenty because it's the
Yeah.
right people. So, yeah.
If it's the right people, I think it's very interesting because a lot of the times people say, well, numbers are everything. You need to have a lot of impressions, how to go viral on LinkedIn, everything, which is cool. It's fine. If you want to build a community, your goal is to go viral. It's fine. Do that. But if you want to build a business and you know that there are only a few relevant people that you need to target, 500 relevant eyeballs are much greater than 500,000 irrelevant ones.
Yep.
As simple as that. Not once have I heard somebody who went viral for a very top of the funnel topic or evergreen content, and they said, well, over 50% of people have bought from us now. It doesn't
that
happen,
way. Yeah.
unfortunately, right? So even if the number of eyeballs is low, 500, more than enough, as you said, but if they're relevant, I think that's the only thing that matters.
Have you had a client go viral yet? Like truly viral?
I used to work at an agency, and we were actually working with Thibault Louis Luca, founder of Taplio.
I know.
And we took him viral a couple of times, and it was cool because for him at that very moment, he wasn't really like selling, but he wanted to build a community. That was cool for him. But in terms of somebody who wanted to get a lot of business from going viral, no, that did not happen.
So at Revenues End, we had it happen a couple times, but it's actually pretty interesting what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Type of content that goes viral is like, and this post got like I think 90 million views or something a few years
Oh
ago.
wow.
And the types of posts that do that are like human interest posts, right? And this one was about like something to the effect of like how you need to let people, pick up their kid during the workday, right? Like something like that, right? So, okay, she gets
Relatable
interviewed,
content.
relatable content to anybody. And yeah, she
Exactly.
gets interviewed on the news. She gets all this tons of DMs. Her feed blows up. And this CEO and founder spends like 3 whole days cleaning out her inbox. And I was like, hey, Christine, how many leads you get? She's like, oh, none. She's like, oh,
90 million people saw that.
not one lead.
That is crazy, isn't it?
Isn't it? But what she posted about had nothing to do with her solution.
Yeah.
And it, being known for having said a popular thing about picking your kids up from school during the workday, it's like, it's fine. Like, I don't dislike that. I kind of like that, but it's not like really good. It's not really bad. It's just sort of, mild thumbs up. But nobody
Yeah.
buys things because of mild thumbs up. They buy things because they're like, oh, that person can help us with this problem we have.
Tapping into that really particular pain point, right?
Exactly. Like on in one moment, people will say, you really got to target your ICP, your niche, your pain point. And the other, they'll be like, how do you go viral? And I'm like, did you not hear yourself? Like
Yeah.
those things are different. Those things are, and the problem is people think they can do both in one go. They think they can have a
Mm.
viral post about their product, and that just doesn't happen unless your product is like, I don't know, if your product is mid-journey, great. I guess you can try to go
Yeah.
viral with it, but like most of you are not that. And if you are, then you know how to not take my advice on this. And I don't try to go viral with aware posts. Um, so don't try to do both
Yeah.
in one, I think is the
Yeah,
answer.
exactly. Mine would be the same because whenever I'm onboard clients, I say you need two things really to stand out and be the number one go-to option for your target audience. First and foremost, obviously, thought leadership around your industry. One of my former clients, Alex, he really summed it up really nicely. He said it's not thought leadership if it's from a collective consciousness. So if you really want to put something out that makes you stand out, it has to be from your thought leadership. So that's one.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is create content that really taps into your audience's pain points. And I'm not talking about surface level things like, hey, we solved this problem through our product or service, which is cool. But I always suggest divide your pain point content into 4 layers. Why is your ICP facing this problem? Why is this problem occurring in the first place? Like, what are the root causes? Maybe they're not aware of it. What is the hidden cost? What happens if you don't solve this problem, right? That is the third layer because you have to make them go through this whole journey from A to Z, your target audience. And the last one is how do you, as a service provider or as a product founder, solve this problem for them? And this is where you plug in your solution. I believe, like, very strongly, and based on my experience for the past 3 years, this is the core of what you need. If you want to sell something to somebody, this is what you need. The rest of it, to build trust and everything, you document your journey, right? As you said, as a founder, what has your journey been like? In my opinion, that is the core structure that you need to basically cover everything.
Yeah. I mean, so when you were talking, I
Mm-hmm.
thought to one of my favorite books, The Challenger Sale. Have you read that?
I haven't, unfortunately, no.
Oh, it's pretty much what you described.
Okay.
It's written in 2008. It's probably my favorite sales book I've ever read. And it's actually
The
really
Challenger,
The
what is it
Challenger
called, sir?
Sale. Sale.
I'm
Yeah.
just taking notes, actually. The Challenger, I'll check it out, the Challenger sale.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's an old book. People are like, oh, I saw that in my sales training, but like this thing is so powerful because what you described is that process. And I pretty much took that process. I applied it to my first 2 sales jobs, did really well. And then I applied it to marketing, did really well as well.
Okay.
It's pretty much the process to convince anyone of something that they really, really should believe. I like it because it doesn't rely on persuasion, right? You start with the problem, right? Like, I understand the problem. You then go into, they call it rational drowning, why the problem is so important. You then come to a perspective reframe. So here's a new way of thinking about the problem that you hadn't come across yet. That's very important. If you just tell them things they already know, they're going to be like, if all you're telling me is what I already know, I haven't solved the problem, you must not know how to solve the problem. So you have to have something that they don't know yet, a new perspective. And so once you get that new perspective in there, you can start to outline the new way. So with this new mindset that you hadn't previously considered, then you outline the new way of approaching the problem. And there's your first few steps. Finally, as you said, I love that you have your own solution last. Because finally, once all that is solved, by the way, we do it in this way. By the way, so we're the ones that told you, you don't say this, but like, we're the ones that told you that we understand the problem, how bad it is, what the perspective that you should have on is, and the new way. It's just natural that our solution would incorporate all of these things that you've come to believe. And I love that because you're not persuading anyone of everything. You're teaching, and then you're tailing that teaching to them, and then you're assertively leading them toward the solution. And so that's why it works so well in the sales process. If you are a product knowledge focused seller, which every founder is, hopefully. It also worked great for marketing because you can approach marketing with this gravitas, right? You can come and say, you're more preaching than you are marketing. That's why it works so well for founder brand. And some people say like, well, what if I don't know what to say about this topic? What if I don't, like over a beer? What if I don't really care about this? I'm like, I shouldn't be doing it. Don't build a founder brand if you don't care. Go away. Leave it to the people who do, I don't want you here. If you don't care and you just want to use AI spam to flood the feed with crap, go away. So I have nothing for you,
Yeah, that's way too common these days as well. I mean, AI and content creation and building or something on LinkedIn, that's a whole new topic, right? I read a post recently and it said how we need to think about what AI is doing to us, lending our thought leadership to it and everything, and AI is not good for us. My objection to that was, if I as an individual am willing and comfortable with lending my thought leadership to AI, like, hey, you become my thought leadership, then the problem isn't AI, the problem is me, right? If I'm comfortable letting them become my thought leadership, then there's no surprise that I'm going to be lost in the crowd because then I'm becoming everybody else. So the problem really isn't, in my opinion, AI. Even right now with content creation, AI is everywhere. It depends on how you use it, right? It's not AI's fault. It depends on you and how you use it.
Exactly. I agree completely. Like you said, if you are somebody who uses AI for the things that drain you in the content operations process and you pull in AI then, it's great. I used Aware's AI last night to repurpose 5 of my best posts in just like different angles. And it took me like way less time than it would have been to like tip tap and do it myself.
Do it manually.
Right?
Yeah.
But the AI is only trained on my own content. We fed it 100 of my top posts. And so it's only working from my web of belief. And then I'm editing and I'm reviewing it. I'm engaging with it. I'm standing by the work. I'm just using it for like the actual typing of letters on the computer. There's only 26 letters in the alphabet. It doesn't matter if a GPT keyed the stroke in, right? Like that doesn't matter intrinsically. What does matter is who created the idea and how well the idea does. The funniest thing about creators going viral and talking about how to create content with AI is you look at the posts they write and they weren't created with AI. It's about how to use AI, but the post itself was not created with AI. And I love that. I love that. I mean, Ruben Hassid spends tons of manual time with a great video setup and his own scripts and his own self and his own graphic design, creating content about how to not do that. It's like, do people see what is happening right now? Look at the posts that actually were created with AI. The people who AI spam your comments on your threads and their own posts are Dolly images and ChatGPT spam, those posts don't go anywhere. And so that's the dichotomy, is people who are using their own creativity to talk about AI do really well. Those people who are actually taking that advice are doing terribly. And I'm not saying anyone in particular is being disingenuous about this, but telling people they're going to have your own, success as a big creator, right? You will be like me if you just use AI. You're leading people into failure and burnout,
Yeah.
So I love AI. I use it every day. But I use it to enhance my thinking, not to do it for me.
Love that.
Like, that's the only way I think it can be used.
Yeah, I think that is a nice way to sum it up as well. Enhance your thinking, not really replace it, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
It's, Alex, it has been a wonderful episode. There's one last thing that I want to talk to you about, right? And then we can wrap it up. There's an argument, not an argument, but a lot of people, especially marketing founders, I would say, when I worked with agencies, a marketing founder would be onboarded. They would almost, you could see it, they were treating organic content like paid social because they were in the space, they used it so much, they were expecting those kind of returns. They say, we put in X, we get Y return, everything's cool. But within 2 to 3 months, they would churn because they would not see that same return with that paid social mindset. What would you say to people who are trying to try this founder branding thing out, but they might have that mindset and they expect significant returns in 2 or 3 months?
There are a number of things that could be going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And the two most common are, one, they put in, with paid social, their budget was going to be, $20K a month. And with founder brand, they put in 30 minutes a week. And the 30 minutes a week they did put in was like 1 foot out the door, right? It wasn't even very good.
Yeah.
Because they're trying it out, they're testing the waters, and they're vastly underinvesting in it, right? And if you're going to do it, invest some money for help, and then also you have to give it your own self. You have to give it your own energy,
100%.
your own. You take it seriously, right? You got to participate in those interviews. You got to give good content. What is Kelly going to do? Like make magic from not knowing you? Like it
exactly.
It's the dynamic between you and the person who's writing with you that makes it work. If you haven't given that, it's not going to go anywhere, and your audience will be able to tell. And the second one is that it is working, you just aren't seeing it, which is to say, the corporations are looking at it, the buyers are there, they just haven't publicly engaged, and your posts are, 600 impressions versus 200, and you're thinking this is not progress enough. But it's a compounding effect rather than the pay to play. So with your founder brand, it's going to compound over time. And then like SEO, like any other branding effort where you just have to, make the deposits and eventually those build up. If you treat it like pay to play, like with paid ads, if you have big enough budget, you can make a big splash in an hour, right? Like your budget is 100K in a day. Like LinkedIn will spend that for you if you tell it, right? It's a different motion. You should be mathematically thinking of it as a different motion. You should be thinking of it as a dramatically lower return, probably, on your effort in the first 3 months.
Yeah.
In exchange for getting a dramatically better return on effort than paid social or other paid spend in a year. And if you are not able to put in the work in the early days, the rewards of having done it won't accrue to you. And that's just the nature of any branding or organic asset building motion works like that. So you shouldn't treat it the same. If you want to, then do. So write that great founder post, but then pay to play. Thought leader ads are there, right?
Exactly.
Like you could do it if you did. If you really wanted to treat it like paid ads, take the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah.
Give it half the budget you would have given it to boost the post, and then but make the post amazing. So if you haven't done those things, you haven't given it your all. If you really want it to be paid, you can kind of make it paid. If you hadn't done that, you have no right to complain, is my thought. And you don't know what you're doing. Then if you look at any of the founders and CEOs that have like made it big that you want to emulate, look how long they've been doing it. I bet if you went to the CMO of Gong, right, and you said, well, I did it for 3 months and I didn't become bigger than you. He'd be like, get the heck out of here. Like, you know how long I've been doing this? Like
Yeah,
you'd probably on some level offend him with your lack of commitment. And I'm being harsher and harsher over time as time goes on because I have less patience for the excuses in this. But as someone who's been creating content for several years and who's doing really well with it, like you want to blow up in 2 months and become Adam Robinson, and you wanted to spend $3K a month on a with a 45-day out clause, and like you're really trying to limit your investment, shut the front door. Like you don't get that. Like you have to commit to it. I mean, the amount of budget I see to being thrown toward paid social um, versus to organic is like it's it's absurd.
it's
So
crazy. Yeah,
yeah, and that's why as a I bet with you, like you probably look out for that, and just at some point, like you probably disqualify some of those clients is like, I can tell you're not going to be worth my energy to put into this,
yeah.
um,
It's
as it should be.
whenever I send over a proposal to somebody, there's in bold letters I write content calls that we have bi-weekly, an hour of your time where I come prepared with questions and you just give me your thought leadership. They're non-negotiable. If you're not ready to do that, at least give 2 hours of time to this. We're not a fit and we should not be working together.
Yeah, as it should be.
Yeah,
And
love that.
agreed. And that's why when people do that, I'm sure they do much better work when they see that and they decide to commit. Be much better work versus if they see that and they
Yeah,
get disqualified. It's a good sign. So that probably improves your client base quite a bit.